All right, here we go with basically the beginning of the making of a child. Physical development begins at conception. Conception is the point at which a sperm meets an egg. Okay, and that is when all the growth begins. Physical maturity sets limits on psychological ability. So you actually have a point at which where physically, because you can only do certain things like see, you can only see certain distances when you're born because your brain hasn't developed well enough for you to see further. Or, you can just lie there. Your brain hasn't developed enough to keep your hands coordinated. If you ever notice, kids are just sort of like, when they're very first born, they can't really move very fluidly with their fingers and their arms, and they don't have the muscle tone, so their brain hasn't developed. And of course, they can't talk. Their language system is not very functional, so they cry, and that's all they do. And believe me, they cry and cry and cry and cry and cry. And that's why you love them. Prenatal environment can have a lifetime influence on health and intellectual ability. We found this out. That's why there's such a big deal about how a pregnant woman takes care of her child for the 9 months while it's in the womb. Having the right vitamins, minerals, eating the right things, staying away from things that can hurt the child, like alcohol. We found is a huge breakthrough that people didn't realize, 100 years ago, that's a problem. So just to make sure you're aware that the prenatal environment does matter. You don't want to expose the child to a lot of negative things while in the womb. And here we go. Union of egg and sperm is called conception, as I said. And this is a great picture. Here you have a conception going on. This is obviously blown up several times. The sperm is not that large, and neither is the egg. That would be gross. That would be, I don't know. It would be like the person would have to be like Godzilla. Here you have all the sperm that didn't make it in. Oh, they're so sad. They're not really. They're having a party. Okay, this guy got in. They didn't get in. It's a party, and then they all die. And what it's called when it first fertilizes the egg, the sperm, is the zygote. Okay? It's a fertilized egg. It enters a 2-week period of rapid cell division and develops into an embryo eventually. A couple things. I want to make sure I got this straight. You got somewhere between, when a male ejaculates, somewhere between 200 and 600 million sperm are released at one time. So that's a lot. So, it's really, as they say, it's a sort of a evolutionary thing to improve the chances that the sperm will indeed reach the egg. I'm not going to get into every single thing that you can talk about as far as why there's so many of them. Let's just put it this way. A lot die off, don't make it, have problems, making it up the fallopian tube, so on and so forth. After 8 weeks, babies are anatomically indistinguishable, just so you know that. It's you don't know if a boy or girl for about 2 months. And then the sex is determined by the 23rd pair of chromosomes. All right, but once we move from zygote, after 2 weeks, we go to embryo. And here we go. You go as an embryo for 2 weeks the second month. And that's what it's called. I'm just trying to give you the terminology. So zygote, embryo, and then fetus. Fetus is where it is the most, it's going to be very obviously a human-like figure inside the womb when you see it through the ultrasounds. And that will go from 9 weeks to birth. All right, and now we have, again, parental influences on development. Things that can happen if you're not careful. Teratogens is how you say this, teratogens. These are agents that can reach the embryo or fetus during prenatal development and cause harm. And it can be, it's not limited to just these, but these are some of the big ones. Like chemicals or alcohol, and some medicines, you got to be very careful what you take as a mother. Obviously, cocaine, nicotine. These are things that are not real good for a child, okay? and obviously everybody makes a joke about a crack baby, um, but I have actually had the chance to teach some when I was substitute teaching in a special school, and they have so many problems. It's just it's hard to know where to begin and end with how to help them. So I cannot express enough that that is an absolute big no-no. Then you get viral things that the babies catch. You can't always stop it, but obviously HIV. The mother and the child do share blood supply. So many times if the mother does get HIV, the baby many times will end up HIV positive. I'm not going to say it's 100%, but by and large. And then, of course, rubella, which is another viral infection. Anyway, these are just some of the things. So I'm not trying to freak you out. I'm not trying to, it happens. Believe me, I've gone through all these stages where when you find out that you and your wife are pregnant, or she's pregnant, and you're trying to help, everything in the world runs through your mind, and you think anytime you turn on the water and have a glass of water, something horrible could happen. It's really we're quite robust. Remember, we got here, we got to this point in history because we're fairly robust developmentally, as far evolutionary wise. We're not going to die from just every little thing that's in the environment. All right, and now we have fetal alcohol syndrome. These are physical and cognitive abnormalities in children caused by pregnant women's heavy drinking, okay? It does lead to mental retardation, and it can, of course, be totally prevented by abstaining, meaning don't do it if you abstain. Many women will not have a sip of alcohol for the entire 9 months of their pregnancy. And, nobody wants to have a child that has a mental handicap, and then, of course, you wonder for the rest of your life, well, I did have several nights where I went out and enjoyed myself quite a bit, and, you have to live with that. So I would strongly encourage you to abstain if you happen to be a heavy drinker at the time. Now there's some reports out, and I honestly, I don't know everything there is to know about it, but I do know that some doctors are saying, hey, a glass of wine every now and then with dinner is fine. I'm like, well, that I guess people have tried that and nothing's wrong. So that's fine, and you can look up the latest research when you are pregnant and decide for yourself. All right. What does an infant feel and perceive when it's born? What goes on? I mean, think about it. You just literally have come out of the womb. Boom. Okay. What's going on? It must just be this entirely, chaotic world for a child when you think about it, because by and large they're completely immersed in a liquid, and then all of a sudden, and it's dark, and then all of a sudden they're just boom. They pop out this hole. And it's light, and they can't really see. It's much brighter than normal. You can hear all kinds of weird noises you couldn't hear before. No wonder that they talk about infants crying, and that's a good thing. Well, that makes sense. Okay. William James is a famous psychologist who said his big thing was they were booming and buzzing confusion. Okay, that just this boom, 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 because things weren't developed well enough for them really to interpret the world. Okay, was he right? Is infant vision just a blur? Is infant sound just buzzing and booming? Well, the big thing, it's hard to know. He's probably wrong because infants have limited ability to communicate, so it's hard to tell what they experience. You can't ask an infant, hey, what are you experiencing? You have to guesstimate. And they do all these studies. It's kind of funny. When the child comes out, they have been allowed to do research where they'll clap on one side of the head or the other, or they'll shine lights in their eyes, and then they also have several tests they actually really do all the time to make sure that the child's nervous system's working. But these were all attempts to try to figure out if the child turns their head when someone, claps over here, and they turn and look at it, that's an indication that, hey, I could hear that sound, and I'm going to look at what it is. But we don't know for sure. Infants are born with immature visual system. They can detect movement in large objects. They do see that things are moving around the room, and obviously they knew, if they see big things in one side of the room or the other, they have found that they do detect that, but they're not going to see fine detail and things like that, as far as we know. Other senses on day one. They will orient to sounds, as I said. They will turn away from unpleasant odors, which this always makes me laugh. Like, who is the person who came up with, hey, let's stick, a skunk smell under this kid's nose and see what happens? Probably the kid was very unhappy. But they will do the move the head away from an unpleasant odor. They do prefer sweet to sour taste. So again, now you have some researchers, putting lemon juice on their tongue to find out if they like that. And they are born with a number of reflex behaviors, and these are cool. I like telling you guys about these because these are the things they test for to make sure the baby's spinal cord, basically the spinal system and neuromuscular system is working. Okay, and it's scary when they don't respond the way they're supposed to, but by and large, most babies respond, well. So the first one is called the rooting reflex, and that is the tendency to turn the head and open the mouth and search for a nipple when touched on the cheek. Okay, remember, I know you got all the male-female things and the hormones are raging for you guys, but women's breasts exist basically as a way to feed a child. That's why they're there. They fill with milk after the child is born. Okay, and so if you tend to rub a baby's cheek, they will start to sort of give the whole sucking motion and look for a nipple, and they will, and that's a good sign because that means the baby can get food. Without that ability, I mean, it's such a tiny little thing. That ability, I mean, today we can help kids, but you could imagine, 1,000 years ago, if the kid did not have that reflex, the kid died. They didn't know what to do. Okay. Then you have the Babinski, which I'm not sure where this word comes from, but obviously baby Babinski seems to be some kind of relationship there. But the fanning and curling of toes when the foot is stroked. So if this is the foot, they take usually like a metal, the back end of a metal, those little metal hammers for checking your reflexes, and they'll just stroke it up, okay? And it's kind of cool. The baby just goes, that's my invitation, okay? And their feet and their hands do that, and it's kind of a cool little thing, and you have that first little moment in your child's life where you're like, my boy can do the Babinski reflex. Actually, you don't even know what it's called. You'll forget this by that point. All right, then you get the Moro reflex. Moro, and I'm guessing that's a guy who figured this out, named Moro. Throwing the arms out, arching the back, and bringing the arms together as if to hold on to something. It's in response to a loud noise or a sudden change in the position of the head. And it's like they hear a boom, boom, and what they'll do is go, and they'll grab on. They'll just sort of like, oh. And it's just a way for them to try to, I guess, make sure they're in a secure place when they get moved or something loud comes along. They want to make sure that they're, with the mother when the mother moves. It's that simple, okay? And then, of course, grasping is very simple reflex. You just hold your finger out, and I'll tell you that, guys, when when the first time your child just grabs around your finger and holds on to it, you are just mush. You love it, okay? And you're like, oh, my son, my daughter is so strong. Oh, they're going to be an Olympic champion, okay? But it's a neat moment. Okay, and I'm going to stop there on this one, and see you next time.